A wicked snow witch lived up in the land around the pole, where northern lights shone brightly on a world of bitter cold. Perhaps the cold, cold weather was what made the witch so mean, for she was the meanest wicked witch the world has ever seen. Her home was in a darkened cave, and warmth there wasn't much. And there she lived alone among the bats and rats and such. She'd scream and stomp the floor and fly into a rage because she could look down in the valley at the home of Santa Claus, where the animals and elves and all the reindeer danced with glee, and she'd watch and she could tell that they were happy as could be, for they'd sing and dance the whole year round as they worked to make the toys that old Santa would be taking soon to all the girls and boys. The snails and tails and spider legs that went into her potions would not succeed in helping carry out her evil notions. She'd cast her spells and try to mess up Christmas for the kids, but her evil wouldn't work against the good that Santa did. But now, with Christmas drawing near, she had to find a plan that would stop St. Nick from spreading all the toys across the land. As she twitched her whiskers on her chin, her eyes began to twinkle. Hee hee, she crackled out, I know a way to stop Kris Kringle. So she began to scurry round to find the things she'd need to help her carry out her evil plans and wicked deeds. The fire beneath her cauldron set the darkened cave aglow as she planned some wicked witchcraft for old Santa down below. And meanwhile in the valley, poor old Santa was so busy getting things in shape for Christmas Eve, to watch him made you dizzy. The elves and all the animals, so full of Christmas joy, instead of working, tried to hide and play with all the toys. So Mrs. Claus was keeping busy trying to remind all of them to do their job so Santa wouldn't get behind. For each and every Christmas, Santa's job became more haunted by all the complicated toys the children nowadays wanted. Snowmobiles for Eskimos had now replaced the sleds, and dolls that cried and walked and talked and even wet their beds, and motorbikes for 10-year-olds. Poor Santa couldn't figure out an answer to his problem as that pile of toys grew bigger. For his factory these past few years in size had nearly doubled, and if things kept going the way they were, he knew there'd soon be trouble. But he'd find a way, for Santa knew that nothing could replace the look of joy on Christmas morn on every kiddie's face. And lo, his list was filled, and he was so surprised to find the job completed nearly 3 whole days ahead of time. He told his helpers, "This great job you've done, I can't believe. You've earned a rest. Go home and have a merry Christmas Eve." What Santa didn't realize as all his help departed was the most bewitching Christmas e'er in history had started, for the wicked witch had worked for days and nights to plan the doom of St. Nick, whom she would hijack on a rocket to the moon. She had gathered all the bits and pieces that she thought that she would need to build the rocket ship to carry out this evil deed. As the sun was setting, Christmas Eve, a full moon rose so bright, casting eerie shadows of the snow witch dancing in the night. Round and round the fire she danced as she prepared to cast the evil spell she hoped would make this Christmas Eve the last. Gobbledygook and muckety-muck and snickledy-flitch, she cried, and a gleaming silver rocket ship stood pointed at the sky. Now, to get old Santa in that rocket ship would certainly be a chore, but she didn't fear because her bag of tricks held plenty more. She knew that Santa soon would be hitching up his reindeer's 9 to start his long, long journey round the world most any time. She had to rush, so to a raven's leg she tied a note to send to Santa, and upon it here is what she wrote. "Before you start your journey, one small favor, if you will, please bring your sleigh and reindeer to the top of yonder hill. There's someone there whose Christmas Eve will be so very blue if they don't get at least one great big ho-ho-ho from you. So Santa's jolly self, not realizing the connection, started out with Rudolph and the other 8 in that direction. When Santa reached the hilltop, he was sure amazed to see that rocket ship just standing there, as big could be, and the sign up o'er the door said, "Welcome, Santa, come on in." So unsuspecting Santa climbed the ladder with a grin. But no sooner had he entered when the door behind him slammed, and he knew at once the wicked Snow Witch had him in a jam. The witch set off the rocket, and the fire and noise was frightening, so the reindeer took off down the hill just like a bolt of lightning. Back to home much faster than they'd ever flown before. They never stopped till they had reached the front of Santa's door, and now the 9 of them stood in bewilderment because they could not find a way to wake up Mrs. Santa Claus. "What are we going to do?" the reindeer cried out in dismay. "With Santa gone, the kids won't have their toys on Christmas Day." But something happened then and there to make them turn about, for down in the sleigh, beneath the toys, a tiny voice rang out. "Hey, fellas, what's the holdup? What's going on out here?" it said. Then from underneath the toys up popped a fuzzy little head. "It's Monkey Joe," a reindeer cried. "What are you doing here?" He said, "I hid to watch the show the way I do each year. Old Santa never would agree to let me go along, so I stowed away each Christmas Eve to see what's going on. I must have fallen sound asleep as things got underway. It's getting late. Where's Santa? Tell me, what's the big delay?" "The wicked Snow Witch hijacked Santa," one of the reindeers cried, "and Mrs. Claus can't help us, for she's sound asleep inside. It looks as if the kids won't get their Christmas toys this year." But Monkey Joe cried out, "I have an idea, listen here." He said, "I've watched this operation year in and year out, so I'll fill in for Santa." And Monkey Joe began to shout, "Rudolph, you make all the stops the way you always do it, and I'll drop off the toys like Santa Claus. Why, there's nothing to it." So off they went, and let me tell you kids, you won't believe how that silly monkey mixed up everything on Christmas Eve. The sleigh took off, and in the driver's seat was Monkey Joe, and the first stop on the list was Nip and Tuck, the Eskimo. Now in his letter, he had asked St. Nicholas for a sled, but crazy mixed-up Monkey Joe dropped off a bike instead. As the reindeer couldn't help, for they just knew to pull the sleigh, so Monkey Joe would be the one to mix things up this day. Mary Jane had asked to have a doll with pretty curls, but everything she got was toys for boys instead of girls. Billy Joe's new boxing gloves had gone to Mary Jane, and he got Amy's doll. Amy got a brand new train. And Sonia wanted roller skates to do some brand new tricks, but underneath the tree instead she found a pogo stick. And all the kids were getting things they couldn't even use. Freddie asking for a kite. He got some tennis shoes. Now mixed up Monkey Joe thought everything was going fine. He said, "I'm doing just like Santa's done so many times." To each and every house he went, just mixing things up grand, while thinking, "Oh boy, I've got this situation well in hand." Now meanwhile, Santa's rocket ship had landed on the moon, and luckily for all of us, he'd be returning soon, for no sooner had he landed when he spied a rocket ship with some spacemen from the USA who'd been there on a trip. "You've got to get me back," he said. "Give it all it's worth." So they blasted off and headed back toward the planet Earth. As they neared the Earth, St. Nicholas was sure surprised to spy his sleigh and all his reindeer sailing out across the sky, and at the reins was Monkey Joe, just having so much fun and taking pride in what he felt to be a job well done. Then in a flash the astronauts caught up with Santa's sleigh and dropped him off and watched him as he sped upon his way. The first thing Santa checked his list to see who'd gotten what, and when he saw that mixed-up mess, he almost blew his top. But he looked down at the monkey dressed as Santa Claus and said, "You did your best." Then laughed so hard he fell out of the sled. "Let's deliver all those toys and straighten up the best we can." And he made the fastest trip he'd ever made across the land. By morning, most of the kids had gotten the things for which they had asked, and Santa Claus had tried his best to finish up that task. But Monkey Joe had mixed things up so bad the morning sun caught poor Santa cleaning up. Several jobs were left undone. He said, "The kids won't understand just what's happened here. To those who got the wrong things, we'll make it up next year." So if you wake up on Christmas morning expecting certain toys and the wrong things there, don't let it take away your Christmas joy. For mistakes, they sometimes happen, and we want you all to know not to blame it on poor Santa. Blame it all on Monkey Joe.